When you're thinking of this King Kong way back when, how did it, what you were thinking of then and what came out now, are they similar? Are they?
They're obviously very different. I mean, they'd have to be, because I was 12 years old when I tried to make it the first time round. And I wanted to do a stop-motion animation version because I was a big fan of stop-motion, which is how the original Kong was produced, you know, animating puppets. I tried to do it in 1996. I spent 7 or 8 months on it then, and the studio pulled the plug on it.
The release of Peter Jackson's The Frighteners marked a pivotal point in his career. This was supposed to be Jackson's grand entry into mainstream filmmaking, but the studio's summer release gamble backfired. Out of a budget of $29 million, it only made about $26 million, barely breaking even. For Jackson, who was known for classic cult films like Bad Taste and Brain Dead, and even earned critical praise for Heavenly Creatures, this commercial failure feels crushing. Suddenly, the industry that had welcomed him with a big budget project is going, maybe Peter Jackson is not a good director. So now Peter Jackson is at a crossroads. Will this flop tag him as just a niche horror guy? Brilliant with splatter and laughs, but incapable of handling major studio productions. To make matters even worse, Peter Jackson's dream project, a remake of King Kong, is suddenly ripped away. While making The Frighteners, Universal was going, we really love your imaginative style, so we're going to give you King Kong after this.
What I'm proud of, what I hope I've accomplished with the film, is to do a film with so many effect shots that doesn't come across like a big special effects movie. It comes across hopefully like a thriller, like a character-driven thriller. I mean, the characters and the plot are the thing that I just want an audience to go along with, and I don't want them to be overwhelmed by all these effects. I want them to be kind of like integral to the movie.
Throughout 1996, Peter and his partner Fran Walsh poured their hearts into writing a new King Kong script and crafting creature designs. Jackson was a lifelong King Kong superfan. He first saw the 1993 classic as a child, and it sparked his filmmaking fire. So now he had a chance to honor the beloved film. Then the phone call came. It's January 1997. An executive from Universal calls him and says, "Look, Pete, we love you, we really do, but we're pulling the plug on King Kong." So at this point, Jackson is standing there. He's thinking, I can't believe I just lost my dream job. He later explained the studio's reasoning. Competing monster movies were on the horizon, a Godzilla reboot, and Disney's Mighty Joe Young. So Universal was going, we can't compete with these movies, so let's pull the brakes on King Kong. In Peter's own words, it is probably the most disastrous thing in my life. So at this point, Peter was genuinely heartbroken. So here we are in 1997. Peter Jackson's path forward is frighteningly unclear. The industry is going, is Jackson just a fluke? Will he ever recover from this? He had made a name for himself on low-budget films in New Zealand, but his first shot at the big leagues did not pan out financially. Yet, even at this low point, Jackson's passion for filmmaking has not dimmed. He got reflective and strategic, and if anything, the failure and rejection lit a new fire under him. So Peter is going, I need to prove myself, and I need to do something big right now. Suddenly, his imagination drifts back to an idea that first flickered during the stressful post-production of The Frighteners. Surrounded by banks of powerful new computers his team bought to create the film's many ghostly digital effects, Peter had a crazy thought. Gosh, what am I gonna do with all these computers when the movie is done? So in late 1995, right in the thick of crunch time on The Frighteners, an answer came to him. I'm going to make a fantasy film, he said. I thought, well, what type of movie can I make that's gonna need a big computer infrastructure? And then the idea of Lord of the Rings came to mind. At the time it seemed like a far-off dream. So now in 1997, with nothing left to lose, that dream is about to become a salvation. So Peter sits down with Fran Walsh and says, let's do Lord of the Rings, and we'll shoot it here in New Zealand.
I have quite a good ability at the very beginning when we're first starting to write the screenplay. I have quite a good ability to imagine the film in my head. Like, you know, even the very first page of the script, as we do it, I can start to imagine the camera angles, the music. I can start to feel how the film's coming together, and I sort of have this imaginary film starting to be put together.
Now at this point, to undertake a huge live-action version of not just one film, but the entire epic trilogy in the 1990s was widely seen as impossible. Fantasy movies were not exactly a big deal in Hollywood, so the studios saw it as risky. But despite this, Peter was going, I'm pretty sure I can bring this film to life. so I'm gonna make this movie one way or another. So they eventually gained support from Miramax, and at first, the whole thing was supposed to take place over 2 films. But as Peter is writing the script, he's going, I think this needs more room to breathe, so let's divide this into 3 acts following Tolkien's own volumes. Now at this point, Miramax is going, let's keep this at 2 movies, please, because I don't think this needs to be 3 movies long. But despite these limits, Jackson presses on, refining the scripts for over a year. Now at this point, Miramax is getting cold feet. They're going, this budget is getting too extreme for us right now, so if you want, you can shop the project to other studios. And this is where New Line Cinema enters the fold. And they were known for Nightmare on Elm Street and had franchise success with Ninja Turtles. So Jackson goes up to New Line's founder Bob Shaye and he says, look, I really want to make Lord of the Rings and we can do it in exactly 2 movies. So Shaye listens to the pitch and then he says, why 2 films? It's 3 books. Shouldn't it be 3 films? And Peter goes, yes, it should be 3 films. And in that moment, the project transforms from merely ambitious to truly unprecedented.
And he said, look, we're interested, but we're basically interested in 3 movies. And that was that.
I hope you got up and went over and kissed him.
Well, yeah, I felt like hugging him. Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable.
So now Peter Jackson does something insane. He goes, I really want to shoot all 3 movies at the same time. So instead of shooting 1 movie in 1 year, the second movie in the second year, etc., let's shoot the whole thing in 18 months in New Zealand. Now to put this into perspective, no one had ever tried to make 3 enormous effects-heavy films at once. And that's because usually if the first film flops, then nobody's going to want to see the other 2.
Oh, the responsibility, I mean, the fate of the studio, to some degree, we were told, was riding on these movies, that it would have disastrous consequences for the studio, for the company, if these films didn't work, or the first film didn't work in actual fact.
So by shooting all 3 films at once, this was going to be a huge gamble. Storyboarding begins in 1997. He brings aboard famed Tolkien illustrators Alan Lee and John Howe to visualize Middle-earth. And by 1999, Peter is leading 4 or 5 units working simultaneously around New Zealand on any given day. Filming stretches over 14 months. And doing the principal photography for all 3 films in one go, that had never been done before. The crazy thing is, Peter Jackson was doubling down on a genre that was called box office poison. In the late 90s, fantasy films were viewed as a risky bet at best. Because for every Star Wars, there was a Crow or an Excalibur that underperformed. But Jackson believes the problem is not that fantasy cannot sell, it's that it hasn't been done with enough conviction. After 100 years of cinema, no one's really nailed fantasy. So that's the challenge. I want to see if I can pull it off, Peter admits. Jackson's commitment to authenticity is extraordinary. While developing the trilogy, he insists on shooting entirely in New Zealand, his homeland, far from the Hollywood backlot, but perfect for Middle-earth's landscapes.
Well, New Zealand as a location for the Lord of the Rings is perfect. I'm a New Zealand filmmaker and I live and work there, so for me it was easy. But I think that if any filmmaker anywhere in the world was doing the Lord of the Rings, New Zealand would be like right up on the location.
Because it's an unspoiled Britain, so to speak.
Yeah, well, Tolkien. I mean, the Middle Earth that Tolkien wrote about is not on another planet. It's a mythic prehistory of Europe.
Yeah.
And so these sort of New Zealand has these unspoiled kind of primitive European landscapes essentially.
At first the studio is going, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but Jackson's confidence eventually wins them over. New Line is proudly marketing the film's stunning Kiwi locations and practical sets. Every detail from armor and swords to languages is carefully crafted by Jackson and his team at Wingnut Films and Weta Workshop. They want the audience to feel that Middle-earth is a real place with a real history and not just a cheesy soundstage. By betting his career on Lord of the Rings and trying to make it feel more realistic, Jackson is effectively saying, if this fails, I'll go down in flames attempting the impossible. But if it succeeds, this film is going to change the industry forever. To realize his epic vision, Jackson knows he must push the limits of filmmaking technology and blend it with old-school craft. Standing on those massive New Zealand sets, he looks around at what his team has built. The entire village of Hobbiton, a full-sized Rivendell, the towering walls of Helm's Deep. The production constructed extensive practical sets and miniatures. In fact, 72 incredibly detailed large-scale models, once called bigatures, were built of locations like Minas Tirith and Barad-dûr. These miniatures, some as tall as 7 meters, are so detailed that they look real on camera, and Jackson uses them to give the film a tangible, grounded feel. Instead of relying solely on CGI for environments, he films these environments with motion control cameras, and then he enhances them digitally. At the same time, Jackson's team at Weta Digital is inventing new technology to pull this off. Perhaps the most famous innovation is the Massive software, developed explicitly for Lord of the Rings. Massive uses AI to generate entire armies of virtual soldiers, ones that can fight on their own in huge battle scenes. This was groundbreaking at the time. Instead of obvious copy and paste clone armies, each warrior in battle is an autonomous agent able to make its own combat decisions. And the result of this is the epic Battle of Helm's Deep in the Two Towers, featuring tens of thousands of warriors on screen, a spectacle unlike anything anyone has ever seen before.
When you're making images of people to go in a film, you need to use the computer sometimes. For instance, you need 100,000 people in battle. You just can't go out and shoot that. These days it's just simply impossible.
We need tens of thousands of soldiers colliding with each other and going into battle. I don't know if there's 10,000 people in New Zealand. so we had to actually create these armies digitally.
That means you need a program that's going to have a three-dimensional representation of people in it. You could actually just generate pictures of people. You could take existing pictures of people and multiply them, but that's not going to look as good as if you make three-dimensional people inside the computer. That's what Massive enables you to do.
And who could forget Golem? Bringing the twisted creature to life required state-of-the-art motion capture and animation blending with live action. And this technique was still very young at this time. Then, Jackson hires performer Andy Serkis to not only voice Gollum, but to act him out, pioneering a new form of digital character acting, one that would become industry standard later. The team's work was so convincing that by 2003, many fans were going, even though Gollum is CG, Andy Serkis needs an Oscar nomination. He was just that convincing. The thing is, all these innovations were driven by necessity. Jackson had promised to deliver a mind-blowing cinematic experience, especially since the film had a massive budget and scope. So Jackson had to use every trick in the book to make this work. He used forced perspective photography to make the 6-foot actor Elijah Wood appear to be hobbit-sized next to Ian McKellen's tall Gandalf. And this was done in camera without digital fakery. These unprecedented filmmaking techniques did not come without stress. During the grueling 4-month shoot for Helm's Deep, New Line executives were going, look, this is gonna cost too much to make, so you need to wrap this up as soon as possible. But Peter Jackson was going, no, I'm not gonna compromise the quality of this film. And he fought to make it true to his vision. So by the time principal photography wrapped, Jackson had essentially shot the equivalent of 3 mega movies back to back, an achievement almost unheard of at the time. So with all the shooting done, Peter was exhausted but exhilarated. He was going, I know that I have something special here right now. Now the only thing I have to do is assemble it into a coherent, powerful trilogy. So in December of 2001, The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring premieres, and suddenly everybody is going, Peter Jackson is a genius. The film is a critical and commercial smash, and audiences, ones who have read the books and those who haven't, are entranced by Middle-earth. The movie grosses nearly $900 million worldwide, far exceeding expectations. And that's just the first installment. Over the next 2 years, the gamble pays off in escalating fashion. The Two Towers, which came out in 2002, and The Return of the King in 2003, they also smashed box office records. And by the end of 2003, the trilogy has earned around $3 billion in global box office. In fact, when the dust settled, Peter Jackson was ranked as the 4th highest grossing director of all time.
And the Oscar goes to Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings.
Wow, look, thank you so much for the Academy and for all you're giving us an incredibly overwhelming night, and we just appreciate it so much. Bob Shea and Michael Lynn, God, you did the most risky thing that I think anyone has ever done in this industry, and I'm so happy for you that it paid off.
With the Lord of the Rings triumph, Hollywood was now going, "Hey, Peter, do you want to work with us now? Let's work together." And he was suddenly given complete creative freedom over his projects. Remember that heartbreaking King Kong project? Universal finally came crawling back like, "Hey, Peter, we apologize for doubting you earlier, but do you want to work with us again? Please, will you work with us?" And Peter's answer was absolutely yes. He had some conditions though. He wanted to begin from scratch, discarding the old script he wrote in 1996, and making Kong with everything he learned from Lord of the Rings. The result was King Kong 2005. So after doubting himself and after losing industry respect, Jackson decided to bet on himself and make a movie that nobody else could have made at the time. Then that eventually paid off, and he finally got to make his dream movie. Anyway, if you like this video and you want to know why Terminator Salvation felt like 2 movies in one, then you need to watch this next video. Later.